You got Maga Mac here with you on Birds 365, and he and I didn't even consult. We got the same gray T-shirt on today, looking good. Again, he's got more zeros than me. He doesn't have Jeff Lurie zeros, but the well-dressed.
No, but you do.
You think?
Here in the Delaware Valley, he's one of a very small group. Scott Grayson here with us on Birds 365. All right, here's why I want to start with you, Scott, because John and I discussed it in the first segment. Just me in life. I believe that there's a whole bunch of life spent in the gray areas. The society in which we live, and I've been around 60 years now, has got more and more to each end. It's black and white. It's yes or no. Pick a friggin' side and get there and scream and argue and yell to make your point. I still think there's a whole bunch of life that's spent in the gray area in the middle, and people just don't want that to happen. I think the Eagles tried to find the gray area yesterday, that they wanted to keep Nick Sirianni, but strip him of his power and dictate terms and whatever. And I'm a gray area guy, but I think this is one of the areas where you had to get to an end. You had to make a decision. Either you fired the coach or you let the coach continue to coach, not say we're stripping down all your powers and your abilities or whatever. Just we want to be able to shine the light on that 667 winning percentage. But other than that, do as you're told. Did Jeff Lurie and Howie Roseman falsely try and find a spot, or mistakenly try and find a spot in the middle yesterday?
You know, I guess we'll find out. But I'm with you. I think there's a lot of gray area here. And what we're trying to do is to fill in that gray area with what we think happened, right? My question, I guess, well, I'll answer your question with a question. If the whole Doug Peterson thing didn't happen, is Nick still the head coach? I think on the heels of Doug leaving after what happened here, to do that again after 3 years would set – who's going to want to come here and coach if that's what you're doing with your coaches? Who's going to want to come here and coach if you're getting rid of guys that have the 667 win percentage, that were in the Super Bowl, been in the playoffs all 3 years? I think Jeffrey was worried about – I think ultimately they were worried about their image longer term, and this was how they think they're going to try to solve that. And Nick was willing to play along. That is the other key part.
Yeah.
That Doug was not willing to do. And so Nick's willing to play along to say, fine, I'll be the rah-rah guy. I'll manage the game with the timeouts and all that, decide when we go for two. But other than that, yeah, I mean, they've taken – and it's interesting to see who they put around him now, because now you get the over – Jeff has a history. Look, the guy wants to win, and I think we all respect that and love that about him as an owner in this city. But when they try to cut corners, you brought in inexperienced coordinators, it didn't work. Now it certainly looks like they're going to go get Vic Fangio, who's an experienced guy. He's an older guy. He's been a head coach before. Well, that worked with Doug. You brought in guys that were head coaches before, on at least on defense. And that got you to a Super Bowl victory. Now, it almost looks like if you bring in Fangio, and then let's say, who is it on offense? Is it going to be Frank Reich, or is it going to be – I don't see them going with another inexperienced
It's not going to be a Nick guy from everything I heard yesterday.
Well, then
that's not going to be Frank Reich. Yeah.
But is it going to be a guy, and at least with Vic Fangio, you get a guy – it's almost like you're putting your insurance policy in. If Nick gets off to a bad start, loses the locker room earlier in the year, you've got an interim coach potentially built in. And that's almost what it looks like they're looking or they're going to do. And I fill it in the gray area, Jody. That's what we're all trying to do today. And I think what happened was
they might end up with two interim coaches because it's going to be Vic on defense. Say it's Arthur Smith on offense. You got two interim coaches ready to take over.
And see which one's doing better. Yeah, I feel like Jeffrey's building in his insurance, but said, okay, listen, Nick, if you're willing to play along to term A, B, C, D, E, and F, we will keep you here. And in the back of Jeffrey's mind, he's thinking, but I'm going to have my hand on the red button ready to blow this thing up if come to it. But it's really interesting that you think back to, I know from myself, watching this collapse and the way it went down is absolutely inexcusable. One thing Jeff can't stand is when he's not building, when this program is not building, when this franchise is not building towards a championship, And when there's failure, there are usually repercussions to what you were saying, Jody. And I think the repercussions are that the coordinators are gone, and it was, Nick, this is what you will do in order to stay in your position. And so that's where we're at. And I think, you know, it's interesting. I really expected that Nick was going to be fired. I thought he was, just because that kind of an epic historic collapse. So what it tells me, again, filling in the gray area, is after talking to the players, he heard enough of guys that want to play for him to say, okay, here's the way that we'll let Nick stay.
I don't, you know, Jason Kelce, for better or for worse, and, you know, I evidently am being mean to the 5 billionaire. Sorry, Jeffrey. People hear what they want to hear. 95% of Jeffrey Lurie is great. Great owner. But this is his one blind spot. If that's being mean to the 5 billionaire, that's being mean to the 5 billion. Anyway, you know, Jason Kelce spoke pretty eloquently about, he was asked about, hey, does Jeffrey Lurie ever tap into you? He was like, no. This is Jason Kelce. He ain't talking to players. I mean, this is the guy making decisions, these big decisions, certainly. And by the way, he should. Nobody's saying he shouldn't when it comes to the head coach, but don't blame it on, he's not talking to anybody. Don't even blame it on Howie. This is a Jeffrey Lurie decision, and he straddled the fence. I'm not making grandiose saying it might be successful. I doubt it. It's always about personnel. That didn't change yesterday. It's not going to change tomorrow. It's not going to, if they get good players, they're going to be able to win games. But this is his decision. And it strikes me as one that is exactly that, straddling the fence. So pick a side. That's all.
Yeah, I heard your comments, John, before the break, and I thought you were spot on with the whole straddling the fence comment and about, you know, really not picking a side and going forward with that. I think he finds, and what you brought up about the owners and going in when he hears from other owners, oh, I'd love to have that guy who's done, you know, you put that resume in front without all the emotions, right? The resume of what Nick has done is impressive. Yeah. And if somebody told you 3 years ago, this is what he will do here, you would go, wow, they hit a gold mine. But the way that it happened is just so unforgivable, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it was bad. I got to Tampa, Scott, and I said, there's no way. Everybody was saying, is Nick going to lose his job? I said consistently, no way. No, not even, no shot. Then they played the game, and I was like, oh, you know, maybe I have to rethink that position. It was bad. I'm not, and Nick said it was bad, and nobody's trying to deflect from that. And if he would have fired him, I would have disagreed with it, but I wouldn't have said it was crazy after that performance. So it's not like I think he's totally out of left field by debating, but I think this is the worst decision you can come to by saying, you either say, you know what, he deserved it because of what he is, that resume you were talking about, Scott, or the collapse was so epic, I got to move on. I mean, it was that bad, but he chose the opposite. As Jody said, he stood in the gray area. Sometimes that's good. I'm a big context guy.
Well, it's something that, I guess if you look at it, right, as human beings, we all try to evolve in some way. We learn from previous experiences, right? Maybe this is what Jeff felt he has not done this before, right? He's always had that reaction, right? Get rid of Chip Kelly. Do it my way or hit the highway, Doug, and Doug did. Is this different? Is this an adaptation?
But I see from his perspective, Scott, I would say it's exactly the same as Doug. And the difference is the coach, Doug, said no.
True.
Nick said yes. That's the only difference. So he's doing the same thing.
That's true.
And you know, forcing the coaches, you know, when people are talking about Belichick and you had mentioned, well, you have to be careful because nobody's going to want to come here. Well, nobody with options. They don't want anybody with options. Jim Harbaugh, because he'll come with cachet and want power. They want the next Nick Sirianni. who's going to go along to get along.
And maybe they didn't see the Nick Sirianni out there. Maybe they went through all the top kind of, yeah, we don't have another Nick Sirianni out here, so we better keep the Nick Sirianni we have. Hopefully he'll agree to everything we want to do, and that's the way it shook out. All right, here's a question for both you guys, because you're there. You get to see the players, talk to the players. This was one thing that really grabbed my attention yesterday, and Howie made this point, even though I think Howie's a little perturbed that most of the questions were for Nick. He jumped in at one point. I'll take this one. It was a Nick inquisition.
That was how he cut me off. Did take a softball from someone. Go ahead.
Whatever it was. One thing that Howie did say that certainly got my attention was that, yeah, they talk to the players, but all they're doing is gathering information. Don't kid yourself. This is us. This is on me. This is on Nick. The players are here, and we have the exit interviews, but we're just gathering information. We really don't take what the players are saying into consideration in major moves we're going to make. If you're a player, if you're Britton Covey, although, man, he made some news this week. Maybe he's a bad choice for me to use as an example. But you're not a star player. You're a role player. You're a special teams player. And what do you think about this? That, all right, they're going to ask you, and they're not going to be taking copious notes on what you say. But if you are Fletcher Cox, if you are Hassan Reddick, if you are Devontae Smith, if you are Dallas Goedert, if you are Lane Johnson, you're just being used for informational purposes, that your position, your opinion doesn't carry a whole hell of a lot of weight. That's what I came away from what Howie Roseman said yesterday. We make these decisions ourselves. Yeah, we'll ask the players their opinions and we'll note it, but don't get, this is all on us. I don't know if he was trying to take a bullet or if he was trying to flex on us and tell it's all about me. What did you make? And you guys are around the players. What do you think the players made of that statement? Did I give too much import to that?
You want me to go first, John?
Yeah.
I think Howie likes to try to flex. And he doesn't always land it. And I think he tries to make himself out to be, look, he's an important guy. He's got a very important role in the organization. And I think there are times, like you said, he jumped in and said, I want this, or he tries to make and take the spotlight. Now, whether it's because he thinks he wants to be the one to take the bullet for whatever, because it's fine, point the finger at me, and he thinks he's doing the upstanding job. I just don't always think he lands on both feet well. And so I guess where I'm at is, these players stay here. They continue to play here. They love playing here. The Jason Kelce's, the Lane Johnsons. I don't think they're bothered by it. I think when they feel like they need to be heard, they are heard to these core players, that they are heard to a certain extent. A lot of what they want, though, is related to, I think, things that the head coach gives them.
Yeah.
The practices, the later practices, the taking care of their bodies a little better, and that kind of. So I think a lot of, I don't know how much of what they say to Howie, if they say much to him, is actually something they are really expecting to land, well. I just think Howie's not the best communicator. I think he tries to make himself out to be some sort of a power guy. And look, after what's happened to him with Chip and all that, I can't say I blame him, but I just don't think his communication and what he says always lands well. And I think that's partly what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I think Scott hit it right on the head. It's big with the coaching staff. It's big with the head coach, that communication. Some with Howie, lesser, but some, very little, as I mentioned, with Jason Kelce, who's, the guy in this organization besides the quarterback. And he flat out said, no, Jeffrey's not running stuff by me. I mean, the communication is there is, how you doing, Mr. Lurie? And, I hope you're doing well. But that's not different than anywhere else either. And Jalen Hurts said it after the season. Sometimes the quarterback has that kind of importance, depending on who the quarterback is. And where they are. And Jalen's mindset is, and he said it, players play, coaches coach, owners own. I don't even know if he wants to crave meetings with Jeffrey Lurie. But yeah, I think Scott hit it on the head. It's basically very important with the head coach, a little bit with the GM, but very little with the owner.
All right, so here's my question to both of you again. If that's the case, it's important with the coach. How does Nick Sirianni run the room now? John McMullen, Jody McDonald, to a lesser extent, Scott Grayson, all said here today, he's been neutered. He just doesn't have the gravitas and the power that he did before. He's coming in as a neutered coach. How does he command that room? How does he get the attention and the respect of those guys if they're smart enough to figure out, yeah, coach, what are you doing? You're getting sandwiches for us today? You're not running the offense. You're not running the defense. You're not running the special teams.
Maybe
you're running, get me a Reuben coach. How does he take command of the room now?
I guess, frankly, that's going to be what is going to be fascinating to watch. Is he is a good, I think he is a good speaker. I think he does do a good job of presenting things to the team, big picture, and that's going to be what he's got to do. But nobody's make no bones about it. Look, nobody's taking this offensive coordinator job unless they believe they're going to get to run, and they're told by Jeff and Howie they will run their offense the way they want.
Which Nick said they were. Basically.
He did. Yeah. He did. And that is going to be interesting. That's going to be the most humbling thing for Nick, I think, is to suddenly not be able to, he's going to, I'm sure, say, well, what about doing this? And I hope he does. I think some of the best things that happen in sports are when one thing is evolved a little bit with something else. We saw too much of Nick's offense is not going to be a good thing, but maybe a little bit here and there blended with the right mind could be a good thing. And I think that's where Nick's going to try to find his niche. I think I will be curious to see what the relationship is like with the players that come back and who's here and what they do in the off season and how they behave behind the scenes. And that stuff we don't really get to see a lot of. I think Nick's best role is going to be just to try to be, if he can show that he's got good grasp of the game and a good decision-making process on the sidelines, when to take timeouts, when not to, when to go for two, when not, then I think he'll have the back. If he's able to manage all that stuff well, these players will play for him. They want to win. But how will he be able to check the ego behind the scenes, Monday through Saturday? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what that to me is, Jody McDonald, Scott Grayson see it. I see it. Do they think other people don't see it? That, and I'm talking about Jeffrey and Howie specifically. And you talked about coaches, like coaches Arthur Smith. If he has options, why would he choose Philadelphia with whatever you want to call it? Jody likes hot seat. I'll use hot seat. The coach is obviously on the hot seat. He's obviously coaching for his job, and he can't even coach for his job. He's got to coach for his job, but he can't coach for his job. That's got to be frustrating from his standpoint.
I think the appeal is, like we were talking about, you come in here, if you feel like you're ready for another head coaching hour, a head coach, you're coming in here with the caveat that if things aren't going well, I'm putting myself right near the front of the line to take over.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you do have a head start, but you also have the realization that odds are you're not going to win the Super Bowl. He was out. Odds are you're not going to have a 667 winning percentage. He was out. So what's your shelf life? If you have options, if you have other options, that's what I'm talking about. There's only 32 of these things. Everybody. Right. Carolina's going to get a head coach. Worst organization in the NFL. They're going to get a head coach because somebody's going to strive to take that opportunity. But for guys who have options, the hot candidates, the guys, the Jim Harbaughs, they don't want any part of this.
Jeff has never shown the history of hiring that kind of coach.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's
even Andy Reid was not that kind of coach.
No, not at all. Not at all. But that's how you have to go. By
the way, if Arthur Smith is offered the job here, he's going to take it because, as Scotty said, you're next in line. You're right there. If you get out 2-6 because the defense stinks and the offense is okay, but it gets Nick Sirianni fired, there's a good chance you're going to get the gig because they're not going to elevate Vic Fangio if the defense. If next year's team looks like the end of this year's team, and the defense is falling apart. It seems. Well, they're going to give the offensive guy the gig, so you're going to get a half a year to show.
My
in a non-pressured position that you're the interim guy and you improve the team. Of course he's going to come here.
My early prediction, people are saying I'm making too many declarative statements. Here's my declarative prediction of the Eagles 2024 season. The Eagles fans will hate Vic Fangio by week 7.
Oh, 7? You think it'll wait till 7? I think it'll be quicker than that.
I'm giving him credit.
You're giving him 7 weeks?
7. Yeah, week 7.
So, going back to the offensive coordinator, my whole thing is I don't think it's going to be hard to find one, because when you tell that person, look, we've got a Jalen Hurts, an A.J. Brown, a Devontae Smith, a Dallas Goedert, a Jordan Mailata, and a Lane Johnson as your tackles, who's not going to want to try to impose their offensive system with that kind of talent?
Somebody's got options.
What options are better, John? Who's got better options? What other offensive coordinator positions are you going?
And I'm
the Eagles.
I'm just using Arthur as an example because for whatever reason, people think he's a great offensive coach, even though he wasn't that great in Atlanta, even though they had terrific options, by the way, skill position players. If he does, and I don't know, people could overblow, he might not have options. He just got off being fired in Atlanta. It's a nomadic profession. Does he want to, I don't know, his family situation? I don't know any of that. I'm just saying that the real world aspect plays into it. I think that part of it is something people miss. And Nick kind of talked about it with the assistant coaches a little bit. These guys are always packing up. They are their kids going, like the assistants right now. They know they're going to get fired, but they don't know completely. Do you keep your kids in school? Do you move your kids? Do you do a bunch of crazy things they have to deal with? Having a settled and at least somewhat settled situation in a nomadic profession can be important. Right now, the Eagles are signaling to the rest of the league, we're going to make some changes. We're gonna blame people. That's how I say. If you do not make expectations, Scott Grayson, we are going to blame you. That's basically what they have said to every coach in this league.
And as an offensive guy, if I were an offensive guy, though, I mean, I guess you have to have the right personality. For me, I look at, well, I have an opportunity with that offensive roster. I really need to, how can I not make that work? If I truly believe in my system, right? And I feel like the pieces match well, you go, even if it looks like there could be some uncertainty above you. If you go and you do your good job, you're going to have all kinds of opportunities, maybe one there, maybe plenty in other places, but you will have built your credibility a little higher. Isn't that the goal? Even though it is a nomadic profession, every time these guys take a job, they take it thinking they're going to come out the other side better than when they came in.
Well, I would say look at Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson. They're all of a sudden morons because they can't produce with all those players you just rattled off, and they're all of a sudden.
And then there's the larger,
coaches.
And then the larger question is why. Yeah. And that goes to everything that has been out there about what it's like to work with Jalen and what did he do, and did these guys improvise too much? Like A.J. Brown said about the play in Seattle, did they do things too much off, on their own? So what do you need to get Jalen in line? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things. You talk about gray area, Jody. There you are. I mean, we're back in a whole bunch of gray area.
I guarantee one thing: they will get an offensive coordinator.
And oh, by the way, the guy who actually interviewed, I wonder if he interviewed before or after you guys got a chance to talk to Howie and Nick, because they were late. Shockingly, they were late for their own called press conference time. But Jared Johnson, who, I do remember when he was on the Eagles back in 2011 for
Dream Team. Dream Team.
Was that the Dream Team team? Yeah. Just look at this nomadic life, to use your phrase, John. Eagles went to the Steelers for a year, went to the Seahawks practice squad on off, went to the Bears, went to the Ravens, went to the Cowboys. Never really made a name for himself in any of those stops, but he's with 6 different teams. All right, let's get into coaching. He goes from the 49ers to the Vikings to the Colts, and this past year, the quarterback coach for the Houston Texans. This guy better get a discount from you all because he's moving every 20 minutes.
Yeah,
that's what you sign up for. If you're going to be a coach, player, well, all right, you're a first-round draft pick. Yeah, there's a good chance you're going to be staying with him. You're going to move once in your career. But if not, that's the life you chose. You know that that's going to be the case. So, again, the people just say, oh, why would you hire this guy? You're only going to turn around and lose him. That's the game. Good guys get up and go. Yes, you lose guys. From that, the Eagles did very well. Would you rather have not gone to the Super Bowl and just kept Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon?
I think some people
gone 7-9.
Yeah. Some people would say yes, but
dumb.
No, I mean, again, I'm talking about people in a certain situation, and that's not a guy the Eagles are looking for, obviously. I mean, he's got very little experience. He was an assistant quarterbacks coach 2 years ago, finally got a positional coach job in Houston. Now CJ Stroud, so obviously he's ascending because of how well he's played. But this team very clearly wants somebody with experience, and so yeah.
The Kingsbury interview, it was a little weird, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
No? You think he's the right guy?
I don't know if he's the right guy, but he worked with Lincoln Riley. Howie likes Lincoln Riley. I'm already looking at 2025 and looking at Lincoln Riley because he's going to get the hell out of college football, like everybody's getting the hell out of college football. And Howie has so much respect for Lincoln Riley. And Clip worked with him. I'm sure he gave him the nod, the push. So I'm not surprised the Eagles are interviewing him. Would I be surprised they hired him? No.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was going at.
No, he's an RPO guy. So that works in with Jalen. He's worked with players like that before. He's had some success. He's got experience. He's built offenses. He's got everything. He checks every box for what they want.
Let me challenge you on that, John. He's had some success. Where?
Well, his offenses. I mean, but as a head coach, whether you talk about, his offenses were pretty good in college. Now, his defenses might have been worse than his offenses were good, but he's not being hired to be the head coach. He's being hired to build an offense. So, and obviously I think people forget when they got up to whatever they were, 9-0 or 9-1 the 1 year.
Yeah,
and
last
then they
team
kind of
lose a game, 9-0.
Yeah. So he had some success with Kyler Murray at the pro level.
So let's hire a new offensive coordinator who did the same thing Nick Sirianni did this year. Got off to a fast start and cratered badly. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, he's the head coach. He's being hired again. We're looking at the offensive part of the picture, and the Cardinals were pretty good offensively. Kyler Murray, look at the year he had, pretty stinking good. So again, it's scaled back. He's not the head coach. He's the offensive coordinator. Obviously, at college, he turned Johnny Manziel into a Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, none of us knew what the train wreck of Johnny Manziel was back then, but he turned him into a Heisman Trophy winner. Patrick Mahomes, people will say, well, he couldn't win with Patrick Mahomes. Well, he turned Patrick Mahomes into a top 10 pick. So he's had some success from an offensive perspective. But my question to you, and I've heard a lot of people, not just you, Jody, and maybe I'm being too harsh here, but I've heard a lot of people shit on Kingsbury.
Oh, I got no problem shitting on him.
What? All right. So so who's great of the encompassing talent of all? Arthur Smith? Think about Arthur Smith in Philadelphia, right? He got a lot of criticism for not getting Bijan Robinson. Can you imagine? We almost renamed this show last spring, Scott, Bijan 365, because you got to get Bijan. Bijan's so unique. Bijan's going to catch the ball. He's like a third. Arthur Smith couldn't figure out how to use him. He was the second best running back on Atlanta.
Well, they had when they got Kyle Pitts. When they got Kyle Pitts, the whole talk was, they got one of the best up and coming tight ends, and he's not really evolved well either.
Yeah. So who's out there that's so much better than Cliff Kingsbury?
Well, here's a procedural question for you. If you know the answer, John, or Scotty, jump in there. Did Buffalo make Joe Brady the official offensive coordinator yet, or is he still the interim offensive coordinator?
I believe he's interim. He's had some interviews, so yeah, he's still interim.
I'd blow him away with an offer. The way that the Dolphins did Fangio last year, just offered. Jeff
I'm not giving him $4.5 million.
Jeff Lurie's got those zeros that he could do it if he wanted to.
Well, he could, yeah.
Bat an eye.
Yeah, but why would Joe Brady be the highest paid coordinator in the history of football? No, I'm not going there. You could probably get him.
You could have Cliff Kingsbury for half the price. I'll overpay for Brady before I'll pay for Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think you don't need to do it to make him the highest paid off. Look, if that's your guy, that's your guy. I mean, I don't know.
They asked me for a guy. I gave you a guy.
Well, I'm just arguing the salary part of it. I don't think you need to go that far to make him the highest paid.
I think they need to get a guy who is going to get through to Jalen. The amount of receivers he misses that are open that he just doesn't see, that's got to be fixed. Now, some of the play designs last year were, I mean, they were getting blitzed and they had no answers for it. That's not on Jalen. But there's times that you just see Jalen take his eyes off downfield and he worries about the rush instead of stepping up and delivering a ball out on time. Or somebody's got to get through to Jalen. And that's who the person that whoever it is as offensive coordinator, I think one of the top qualities needs to be somebody who will get through to him and that Jalen will respect and listen to.
Well, yeah. I mean, the biggest part is getting Jalen back on track. Whomever the offensive coordinator is. Yeah. And by the way, we've had so much talk, Scott. It's good you went there about the coaching staff for obvious reasons. I mean, that's what it's all about right now. But the quarterback is kind of skating underneath this.
He is.
I mean, a lot of these offensive problems, if it makes you feel better, blame it on Nick, blame it on Brian, but a lot go on the shoulders of the quarterback. You mentioned the improvisation in Seattle. Guess what? Not necessarily a bad decision, throwing the football down the field to A.J. Brown in that situation. If you look off the safety, if you execute the throw, that was the problem. And the blitz beaters and people talk about, well, a sight adjustment is a sight adjustment. That means the wide receiver sees what's going on. The quarterback sees what's going on. They're on the same page. They do it on the field, and you make an adjustment. Why is Jalen Hurts skating through all this?
I think it's a fair question. And he does have this quality of him that is so likable, right? We saw it and everybody loved and raved about it last year in the Super Bowl run that he's a leader. He's stoic. He's never too high. He's never too low. Well, I mean, when the ship is sinking, you almost want somebody to stand up and scream a little bit that's in charge. And he's that guy that is in charge. He's the face of the team. They made him that. They paid him that way. And he didn't do that. It's not him. That's not who he is. I get it. But when you look at Jalen as a player, and I'm still waiting, John. I'm waiting to hear that he had some sort of surgical procedure done on his knee.
It's possible.
Because he did not have, we all saw it. He did not have one of his top tools in his kit available to him, which is the burst in his leg. And look what it did for him last year with the RPOs. That's fine. But when he doesn't have it, he's got to compensate in some other way. He was unable to do that. That's where the growth needs to occur. And now next year, you want to believe he's going to have that tool back in his bag, at least at the beginning of the year. And the running part of his game will be there. Without that, he was limited. And so you have to, and if Jalen's a competitor, we all believe he is, that's going to bother him. And he's got to study some film. He's got to look at things he missed. He's got to learn from that and try to train himself to see those things. This guy seems like he's built that way. But you're right, John. Why is he skating by without being blamed for some of the ineptitude of what occurred. That safety should have never happened. That's on Jalen wholeheartedly. Yeah. But he never got blamed for it all that much.
I could give you 250 million reasons why he's not being blamed. That kind of locked into him. They're not moving off him anytime soon. And that's, I said earlier before you came on, Scott, I either Nick Sirianni is Oscar worthy or I misinterpreted the situation. He apparently made the decision on Sean Desai. I had talked myself into he was dictated to on that, but man, did they sell that yesterday. And I'm still not 100% sure, but the needle moved from one side to the other for me. The other question I'd like answered is, who before the year started decided Jalen was going to run less? Was it Jalen? Was it Nick Sirianni? Was it the owner who wrote the $250 million contract and signed at the bottom of it? Because he just didn't. It's now done. It's in the rearview mirror. He did not run like he did the year before. Whose idea? Who started that ball rolling? Was it the team? Was it Jalen himself? Was it something that just about? I really love to know the answer to that question because I do believe that's what happened with the Eagle offense here in the second half of the season. They're just not as indefensible if they don't have a +1 quarterback.
Well, and not only
can I drop it? I gotta say real quick. Adam Schefter reporting Vic Fangio is on his way to Philadelphia to sign the contract. He will be the Eagles' new defensive coordinator.
I guess it wasn't much of a negotiation. Yeah. They got it done on the phone in 20 minutes.
Tampering's fun, but it works for your team. But I'm interested to see because Miami was like, all right, go ahead, take him. I'm interested to see what kind of contract because they can't believe the Eagles are giving him $4.5 million, but we'll see.
I did see some of the. He's got family up in Scranton.
Yeah,
part of the payment is to come closer to home.
Yeah. So I hope they're getting a hometown discount.
Yeah, but getting back to your question, Jody, I think it's a good question. And it certainly bears interest. I mean, it's funny how running quarterbacks hate to be labeled as a running quarterback, right? So was that bothering Jalen? Was that bothering him? And he said, I'm going to throw more and made that decision. I will run less and save my knees and try to, which ultimately didn't matter. He still took an injury. Was it Brian Johnson? I just don't think Brian Johnson pushed back on Jalen because of their relationship and their history. And that's why, that's why you just don't know what any gray area again, right? We're here trying to fill the space. I don't know. I think it's a good question, and it's going to be interesting again to see what this new offensive coordinator will do with Jalen, how they will handle him, and how they will get him back in learning and trajectory. He's still got a lot to learn. That he can build on, which is why you look at it and you go, hey, man, that ceiling is way up here. Hopefully but can he get there?
Ceiling is yet to be achieved. Scotty Grayson, we kept you a full half hour. Thank you very much for jumping in with us today. Always appreciated. And I love the T-shirt. You're looking good, buddy.
There you go. I'm with you.
That's Scott
Thanks, Grayson. Buddy. Appreciate it. S. Grayson, Box 29.
Take care, guys.
Twitter, X. Thanks, Scott.
He's Scott Grayson. All right. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. Coming up in less than 20 minutes now, as a matter of fact, we'll talk to our buddy Chris Franklin from NJ.com and get his take on what went down at the NovaCare complex yesterday. Birds fans, here's your chance to save up to 40% on your car insurance. And you can do that right now from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call managing partner Jim or Fran and tell them you're a friend of JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.